Hello students of class 10. Once again, I welcome you to this video of English 2 class. I hope everyone's doing fine. Today we shall be studying prose. We shall take up the story My Greatest Olympic Prize by Jesse Owens. Before we go into the story, let us know who the author is. My Greatest Olympic Prize by Jesse Owens. About the author. Jesse Owens is an American athlete of international repute who became famous by winning 4 gold medals in 1936 Olympic Games, which was held in Berlin. He was the son of a sharecropper and grandson of a slave. He achieved what no Olympian before him had accomplished. My Greatest Olympic Prize was originally published in October 1960. It is a true story of a friendship between two great athletes that burgeoned during the 1936 Berlin Summer Olympics. This friendship was between Jesse Owens, an African American, and Louis Long, a German athlete. It led to a lifelong friendship between the two men, which ended only when Louis Long was killed in action in the Second World War. Now let us look at the story at a glance. Jesse Owens, the protagonist of the story, an African-American athlete, went to participate in the Summer Olympic Games in 1936, held in Berlin, Germany. Adolf Hitler, the fascist ruler of Germany, wanted to ascertain the superiority of his race by winning more gold medals in these Olympic Games. Hitler had spread the myth that the Aryan race were a master race superior to all others and refused to acknowledge that a black man could ever be successful. This was a poisonous propaganda spread by Nazi Germany. Jesse Owens was badly affected by Hitler's words that he almost failed to qualify for the long jump finals. Jesse Owens thought to himself that he should try to break Hitler's resolve and prove him wrong, and show Hitler who was superior and who wasn't. Jesse Owens' long jump trial was faulty as he was perturbed by the German sportsman Louis Long's physique and abilities. Louis Long happened to be Owens' rival in the jump, and Hitler had kept him under wraps, evidently hoping to win the jump with him. The situation seemed hopeless for Jesse until his rival Louis Long spoke to him encouragingly, giving Owens a tip that helped him qualify. Louis Long advises Jesse to jump a few inches before the usual takeoff spot, and this advice makes Jesse qualify for the final event. Louis Long knew that if Owens succeeded, it might jeopardize his chances of winning the gold medal, since they were competing against each other. Jesse and Louis Long became friends. Nevertheless, Louis put winning a medal at risk and continued to encourage Owens to try harder. Louis Long moves beyond the barrier of race. Jesse goes on to win the gold medal and set a record of 26 feet 5'5" by 16 inches. His stunning achievement of 4 gold medals at 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin made him the best remembered athlete in Olympic history. More importantly, the act of Louis Long led to a lifelong friendship between the two men, which ended only when Luz was killed in action in the Second World War. Jesse Owens regards this friendship more than the gold medals of Olympic Games that he had won. He says his friendship with Luz Long is his greatest Olympic prize. Let us now look into the story. For your convenience, the story is given to you on your screen. I have divided the story into pages, and therefore I will explain it according to the page. As I will not be reading the story line by line, you can follow the story provided to you on the screen and listen to the explanation. For further explanation on themes, meanings, title, etc., and assignment, you may visit the school website. Now page 1 of the story on the screen. Jesse Owens, who is the author of the story, is also the protagonist of the story. He introduces us to the story. He says that in the summer of 1936, Berlin in Germany hosted the Olympics game, and Hitler was prepared with his best athletes to prove to the world that all Germans belonged to the Aryan race, which was a master race, a superior race, and that his performers were members of a master race. Jesse Owens recounts that he wasn't worried about what Hitler had to say about his race because he had trained, sweated, and disciplined himself for the past 6 years, keeping the games in mind. That day, as he was going over on the boat, all that he could think about was taking home 1 or 2 of those gold medals, especially on the running broad jump. A year before, that was in the year 1935, as a sophomore at Ohio State University, he had set the world's record of 26 feet 8 1/4 inches. And so he was expected by everyone to win that Olympic event hands down. Now here a sophomore means a second year in college. When the time came for the broad jump trials, Owens was in for a surprise when he saw a tall boy hitting the pit at almost 26 feet on his practice sleeves. This tall boy happened to be Luz Long, a German athlete whom Hitler had kept under wraps. Here, under wraps means that Hitler had kept him as a secret. He did not want the people of the world to come to know him before the event. Now the second page on the screen. Jesse Owens understood that if Luz Long wins, it would add some new support to Hitler's theory of the Aryan superiority. Being a Negro, he was filled with rage and anger at the theory of Hitler. He was determined to show Hitler, the Der Führer, as to who was superior and who wasn't. Now, Der Führer is a title, a political title given to Hitler, meaning the leader. When Jesse Owens says, an angry athlete is an athlete who will make mistakes, he means to say that a true sports person should not be short-tempered and should not lose his cool mind under any circumstances, as it can be the reason of his or her failure. Jesse Owens was no exception to this. When he went to the trials of the long jump event, Luz Long's presence made him underconfident, and he was also filled with anger against Hitler. He fouled in the first 2 attempts of the trial as he was terrified by Luz Long and his easy movements. Owens felt bitter, and he thought to himself, if he had come 3,000 miles just to foul in these trials and make a fool of himself. He felt that Loose Long was a threat to him. The third page on the screen. After he had fouled twice, Owens was walking a few yards from the pit and was kicking disgustingly at the dirt. Suddenly, Owens felt someone tapping on his shoulder, and when he turned around, it was the tall German athlete Loose Long. He offered Owens a firm handshake. He introduced himself in English with a German accent. Owens spoke of his gladness in meeting Long and asked him how he was doing while trying to hide his nervousness. Loose Long replied that he was fine. In fact, he wanted to know how Owens was doing. Owens was confused. He wanted to know the meaning of Loose Long's question, and so he asked Loose Long what he meant exactly by his question. Then Loose Long spoke and said to Owens, "Something must be eating you," with a bit of American slang. Before Owens could say anything, he told him, "You should be able to qualify with your eyes closed." He meant to say that Owens could qualify very easily. These were words of encouragement, and Owens felt encouraged and his spirits lifted up. He answered, "Believe me, I know it." Jesse felt that it was such a good feeling to say that to someone, because he needed someone to boost him up at this moment when he was feeling so down. Now the fourth page on the screen. Loose Long and Owens talked together for the next few minutes, and Owens never told Long what was eating him, because Long seemed to understand Owens' frustration, and he took the trouble to reassure Owens' ability. Loose Long had been schooled in the Nazi youth movement, but he never believed in the Aryan supremacy and the theory of Adolf Hitler. In fact, he looked like one belonging to a superior race. He was an inch taller than Owens, with a lean muscular frame, clear blue eyes, blonde hair, and a strikingly handsome chiseled face. So this is the physical description of Loose Long. After spending some time together, Owens had already calmed down from his anger. When Loose Long sees that Owens had calmed down, he pointed to the takeoff board. He advised Owens to draw a line a few inches in the back of the board and aimed at making his takeoff from there, and in this way he can prevent from fouling, as he needs to jump far enough to qualify. He encourages Owens by telling him that it does not matter if he is not first in the trials. What is most important is what comes tomorrow. Page 5 of the screen. The truth of what Loose Long had spoken hit Owens' heart, and he felt that suddenly all the tension that was built up in him seemed to ebb out of his body. He followed the advice of Loose Long. Confidently, he drew a line full foot in the back of the board and proceeded to jump. The result was that he qualified with almost a foot to spare. Owens was so grateful towards Loose Long because he knew that had it not been for Loose Long's advice, he probably would not have qualified in the finals the following day. That night, after he had qualified in the trials, he paid a visit to Loose Long's room in the Olympic Village to thank him. The two of them sat in Long's quarter and talked for 2 hours about the track and field, about themselves, the world situation, and a dozen other things. That night, when Owens finally got up to leave, they both knew that a real friendship had been formed between them. Although Loose Long was his rival in the field, Owens knew very well that Lewis Long wanted him to do his very best, even if it meant Owens winning. The last page. The next day, it so happened that Lewis broke his own past record. As a result, Owens was pushed to a peak performance because if he had to win, he needed to perform better than Lewis. It was now the turn of Owens to jump. As he landed from his final jump, he was in for a surprise because he had set the Olympic record of 26 feet 5'5" by 16 inches. Lewis was at the side of Owens, and in fact, he was the first person to congratulate Owens. Lewis was not bothered about Hitler, who glared at them from the stands, not 100 yards away. When Lewis shook Owens' hands, he knew that it wasn't a fake smile, although with a broken heart. Now the last few lines on the screen, written in italics, are actually the words of Owens. Owens says, "You can melt down all the gold medals and cups I have, and they couldn't be a plating on the 24-carat friendship I felt for Lewis at that moment. I realized then too that Lewis was the epitome of what Pierre de Coubertin, founder of the modern Olympic Games, must have had in mind when he said, 'The important thing in the Olympic Games is not winning, but taking part. The essential thing in life is not conquering, but fighting well.'" Here, Jesse Owens acknowledges the contribution of Lewis Long, not only by thanking him by going to Long's quarter in the Olympic Village, but by mentioning Long's greatness as the greatest Olympic prize that he has received in the Olympic Games of 1936. He also says that Lewis Long is the epitome of sportsmanship with which Olympic Games was initiated by Pierre de Coubertin, the founder of the modern Olympic Games. In the last few lines, Jesse Owens says that even if he has to melt down all the gold medals and cups that he have won, they wouldn't be sufficient enough to be a plating on the 24-carat friendship that he felt for Lewis Long at that moment. When he says 24-carat, here he means to describe the purity of his friendship with Lewis Long, which is as pure as a 24-carat gold. 24-carat gold is pure gold without any traces of impurity. Here Jesse Owens compares his friendship to be as pure as 24-carat gold. He says that his friendship with Lewis Long was his greatest Olympic prize, which makes the title of the story even more appropriate. Please visit the school website as questions will be given to you as a part of your assignment.